What is up, everybody, and welcome to the 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Game Design Awards. I wanted to, with the year coming to an end, take a little bit of a look at the year 2024 and what kind of cards and archetypes people liked or didn't like. This video does not just contain my own opinion. I've actually asked my community on what they thought, and I've had a survey with over 1,300 people answering. So if you took part in it, thank you so much. That being said, we're going to hop right into the evaluation of what people thought of the game in 2024. I want to say before we go in that, of course, I'm reaching mostly my community with this. So even though we did reach a very respectable number in over 1,300 people, it is not everyone that is represented here in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. We are a much larger space than that. Still, I think it paints a pretty good picture of what kind of card and game design we liked and we didn't like in this year as a community. I thought that was very interesting. If you agree, make sure to leave a like on the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below if you didn't take part in the survey as well. There's also going to be a little bit of a giveaway later on in the video where I'm going to give away some graded cards by Cloud Card Grading, so stick around for that. Without further ado, hope you enjoy the video. Is this the Tearlament Kid Carlos incident? No, we're getting to that now. We're gonna have a nice PowerPoint presentation. And after the last one that I made, where it looked very, very basic, my fiance, she's now helping me with a couple of things regarding content creation. She decided to step in and help me make a more visually pleasing presentation for this one. But she obviously had to ask me for some of the images. There's this Tearlament answer that I'm gonna include. Which picture do you want me to include for Tearlaments? I sat next to her and I was like, yeah, just Google Tearlament Kid Carlos. You're gonna find the image, right? And so I look over and this is what she Googled. And I just thought it was hilarious. The thought of a card called Tearlament Kid Carlos. In my head, I was immediately thinking of like a small version of Kid Carlos. Spanish or Mexican Kid Carlos was like, me gusta el 1008. Hey, it did deliver. First up, we asked everyone in the beginning of the thing whether they were a trading card game or Master Duel player or both. Out of those almost 1,400 participants, we had 70% TCG players and 55% Master Duel players roughly. So those are the numbers we're looking at there. We're going to start with some of the TCG questions first, which came out to about 963 answers from the TCG side. And the first question was, what is, in your opinion, or what was, in your opinion, the most powerful deck in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game in 2024? This one, relatively dominant. In third place, Tenpai with 1.97% of votes. In second place, Yubel with 11.53% of votes. In first place, to no one's surprise, Snake Eyes, 85% of responses. And my choice, it goes without saying. Oh, before my choice, actually. The Fiend Schmidt appeared in 29.49% of responses, but I told her to not make that its own column because it was often mentioned with Snake Eyes. It was often mentioned with Yubel. There was only a few people that mentioned the pure Fiendsmith deck on its own. I don't think that qualifies as the most powerful deck, but I still wanted to bring up the number that like the Fiendsmith engine was very represented in this question as well. Now for my own choice in this category, we're going with Snake Eye, of course. I feel like it is very hard to debate Snake Eyes being the most powerful and most dominant deck in 2024. It truly was the year of fire with a small break of Yubel format. Ryziel and Malice were not really mentioned in this yet. It wouldn't have been fair to even compare Ryziel to full power Snake Eyes, right? Because like when you look at the whole year of 2024, this is not only the current version of Snake Eyes, it's also the freaking like full power Snake Eye in the beginning of the year. Ryziel would not have been as powerful in the beginning of 2024. I do think the power level has gone down with the nerfs we've seen to Snake Eye. The second question then was, what, in your opinion, was the most overrated deck in the trading card game 2024? We've got less powerful responses here, nothing to the extent of 80%. In third place, we have Snake Eyes as well. Hey, look, I don't make the data here, but apparently the 85% thought that Snake Eyes was the most powerful deck in 2024, and then out of the remaining 15%, a bunch of people thought Snake Eyes just wasn't as good. Hey, look, I'm not changing the stats up in any way. This is what people said. It's not my fault. Personally, I don't agree with this. I'm just presenting the data. But hey, 10% said Snake Eyes was overrated, which, okay, I don't know which tournaments you played in 2024, but maybe you thought it was overrated. Fair enough. Please buff Snake Eyes, I suppose. Please Snake Eyes support soon. 17.24% thought Tenpai was overrated. I can get behind that, even though although Tenpai was a very annoying deck to play against, I do think that is a fair thing to say. You know, Tenpai was not as powerful or dominant as maybe people expected it to be. I do think Tenpai was a little overrepresented. It had other things going for it, right? Like, it was not as hard to play. It also, before Fuvalos, it was a very decent budget option as well. In terms of its raw power level, it was probably a little bit overrepresented. And then in first place, 17.34% said Voiceless Voice was the most overrated deck in 2024. And I also picked Voiceless Voice. It's actually a quite solid deck in Master Duel. In the TCG, I think this deck was very underwhelming, especially if you consider that, like, at the time when it came out, Low, I think, was the most expensive card in the set for a while, and then eventually dropped hard when people just realized it's not as good. That's the thing. Overrated does not mean the deck was bad, but it just didn't really deliver. And I think, like, Voiceless Voice definitely didn't deliver what people were expecting it to do. On the flip side, we have the most underrated deck in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game 2024. In third place, Voiceless Voice as well. In this case, I think it makes sense because you have 17% of people who just said Voiceless Voice sucks. Now we have the defenders, the people that spent $60 on their lows when it came out and played it for a long time because they just thought it was good. I'm definitely seeing this every time I mention Voiceless Voice somewhere. There's people who think Voiceless Voice is terrible, and then there's people who think Voiceless Voice is actually much better than people give it credit for. That was their section. In second place, we have Ritual Beast. It's a very complicated deck, hard to play, so not a lot of people had it on their radar. Not a lot of people really committed to playing that deck, but the people that did relatively well with it. So Ritual Beast makes a second place here. And in first place, 14.64% Memento. And I do think this is a pretty solid choice. I do think Memento was a very powerful deck that just slightly fell behind other combo decks like Yubel and Snake Eyes for the entirety of the year. I do think Memento was a very powerful deck at certain points in 2024. I considered it for YCS Bologna for a while. I ended up not going with it because I thought the Fiendsmith deck was just better, but I do think Memento is a fair pick. I've actually chosen something that isn't part of the top three. I've chosen Azamina, and what I mean by this is not Azamina Snake Eyes, because obviously everyone knew, like, hey, Deception is a good starter for Snake Eyes. But when I looked at the Azamina cards, or when I also look at the Azamina cards moving forward, I think people are not giving enough credit to the power of those cards individually separated from Snake Eyes. Like, I've seen very, very little exploration with the Azamina engine and the Azamina cards in other decks. Going into the future now with Snake Eye and Original being banned, I'm hoping that people will do a little bit more with the Azamina cards. I think it's a very strong engine. They have so many other great qualities to them, like great synergy with White Forest, also infinite grind game with an Omni Negate that you can summon every single turn. So I thought this was just one of the things that deserved a spot on here. Otherwise, I would also agree with Memento and Ritual Beast. Next up, we have the most fun deck in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game 2024. This was the deck that you guys enjoyed the most to play or play against. In third place, 4.8% of votes, Mimighoul, which I can get behind. I think the Mimighoul concept sounded very, very fun. Problem obviously being it was a TCG exclusive archetype, so it didn't get as much love as it could have gotten, but it also had the very unfortunate timeline of being released basically in the same set as Dominus Impulse. That card just basically invalidated the strategy, but I think it was a very fun concept that wasn't super competitive, but still, that's not what this category is about. 10.49% said whether that is Runic White Forest or Centurion White Forest or whatever else, Toy Box. The White Forest deck was in second place here, which I do also agree with. I think White Forest was a very, very fun deck to play. I liked it a lot. It was a very, very cool archetype that I wish had seen a little bit more competitive play, but obviously decks like Snake Eyes and Yubel definitely overshadowed it there. And in first place, 14.02%, we have Fiendsmith. This time around, this was mostly pure Fiendsmith. Honestly, I know you guys hate those hand traps, but the Fiendsmith engine itself, very, very fun. My pick for the most fun deck in the Trading Card Game 2024 was still White Forest. Nothing surpasses the fun I had while playing Runic White Forest in 2024. I really like the Fiendsmith deck as well. That's a very close second to me. The White Forest deck ultimately takes the cake for me. All the meta haters in chat are mad about Fiendsmith being fun. That's the thing. It did reach 14%. There's also a lot of people that said other things. You have to realize that this is also something that, because it reached mostly my audience, right? Like, this is not everyone in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. I am aware it is mostly the competitive side of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, very fair to think that Fiendsmith was the most fun deck. The top two here are also my top two, just the other way around. The most annoying deck. We have a winner with 47% over here, but in third place with 10%, we have a Snake Eye, only third place. Hey, even though it was perceived as the most powerful deck of the year, it was not perceived as the most annoying. Keep that in mind. Second place, we have Yubel. Once again, I think this is interesting. It goes deeper than just a deck powerful grrr. Snake Eye was perceived as by far the most powerful deck of the year. Still, twice as many people put Yubel as most annoying. But then in first place, obviously, completely overshadowing these two decks in terms of annoying, we've got Tenpai. And I do agree with that. Although I will say for me also Yubel was a very close second place. We also have the most overrated card in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game 2024, and I think this one is interesting. There was a lot of different answers in this one. Also, there was a lot of people who answered with older cards, saying like, oh, Nibiru was overrated in 2024, but obviously the question was which card that came out in 2024 was overrated. In third place, we have Transaction Rollback, 3.43%. With how people overreacted to how powerful rollback was, I think that's a fair point. Yes, the concept of this card is very powerful, but it just turns out that trap decks are not a problem in the sense that, like, you know, you're copying normal trap cards and not continuous trap cards for the most part. Second place, we have Molcharmy Perulia, 8.6% and 26.27%. Can you guess what the most overrated card, according to the community, was in 2024? It was, in fact, Molcharmy Fuvalos. I'll tell you something. Before you guys and question mark, I picked the same card. Let me explain, all right? Overrated, in my opinion, does not mean that the card is bad. The card did turn out to be a good Yu-Gi-Oh card, but when this card was announced, people went crazy over it. People thought like this card is gonna kill the game. This card is the new maxi, all that. I'm including myself in that. I still remember my initial reaction at this card being very skeptical and very negative about it. Turns out, I think this card is actually fine and I actually liked it. I actually thought it did good things for the game when it was released because it wasn't too broken. It didn't auto-win games. It only punished the decks that I think deserved to be punished. Like Yubel was the most powerful deck before, but it was also the deck with the worst plan into Fuvalos, so it kind of fell off. Fuvalos itself didn't feel like it was as powerful and as broken as people made it out to be. It was a lot of the time only a side deck card, and often you didn't even play it at all. And I think the card is actually way more balanced than people thought it was, and that's why I think it was overrated. On the flip side, most underrated card in the Trading Card Game 2024. In third place, we have Molcharmy Perulia. Some people thought it was overrated, some people thought it was underrated. In second place, we have Dominus Purge, 8.41%. Very good answer in my opinion. And in first place, we have Metaltronus, 9.24%, as a card that actually ended up seeing a decent amount of play after its initial release. All three of these I think are very good responses. They all make a lot of sense in my opinion. My personal choice, maybe a little bit of bias in there, but that's what a subjective survey is for. I picked Dominus Purge because I thought this card was amazing in the Fiendsmith deck. I was very close to also putting Molcharmy Perulia because I feel like something that happened with Perulia, when Perulia came out, everyone already knew about Fuvalos coming out in the next set. And I feel like it had this very weird effect on Yu-Gi-Oh! Where like Molcharmy Perulia was not as expensive or not as popular when it came out because people thought, hey, next set, there's going to be a better option anyways. So I'm not picking up Perulias. I'm not playing Perulias now because like Fuvalos is just better. It turned out that Perulia is still a very good Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. Even with Fuvalos out now, a lot of decks play both and some decks even play Perulia over Fuvalos. So I think all three of these cards make a lot of sense. I personally went with Dominus Purge, but I think Perulia was a close second for me. And here we go. Best card design in Trading Card Game 2024. Some people said specific cards here. Some people answered with archetypes. So this is basically what overall you think was the most fun, the most healthy for the game, or just in general. You know how you look at a card sometimes and you're like, I don't like how they made this card, or I really like how they made this card. This is what this category is supposed to be. In third place, 9% answered Dominus Impulse or Purge. A lot of people mentioned just the Dominus cards. 10.8% really liked the Molcharmies, and 13.29% said Fiendsmith was the best card design in 2024. 2024. And I can get behind that if you take into account the fact that Lacrima was banned. You guys can hate on Fiendsmith all you want, all right? I know you guys are always mad when a card is expensive or when a card is meta. This is supposed to be through the lens of game design, all right? My personal choice was Molcharmi Purulia. A little bit more fun than Molcharmi Fuvalos, because once again, I do think Fuvalos is a very good card, and I think Purulia is a little bit more balanced than Fuvalos in the way I like it. I also think that Ryziel is a very honorable mention for this category. It just came out very late in 2024. I do think all of these answers are pretty fine. I do think Molcharmi Purulia is my favorite card that came out in 2024. Fuvalos is also fine. Fiendsmith is the most fun engine in my opinion. I also get that. For Dominus cards, I personally think Dominus Purge is nice. Dominus Impulse is a little bit overtuned. Now we've got the worst card designs in 2024. What did you guys not enjoy? For this one, we have 14.64% answering Fiendsmith, and the most mentioned card within Fiendsmith was by far Fiendsmith Lacrima. Funnily enough, for the best card design, most people mentioned the archetypes. For the worst card design, most people actually picked specific cards, which I thought was interesting. Over 90% of the Fiendsmith answers, they said specifically Fiendsmith Lacrima. In second place, we have Yubel, 17.86%. And in this case, most people that said Yubel just said Phantom of Yubel. I'm sure you can guess what's in first place. The card design that people perceived as the worst in 2024, not even close, 24.4% Sangan Summoning. You guys know me, I hate Phantom of Yubel. I think even though Tenpai was the most annoying deck, I think the worst card design goes to Phantom of Yubel. It was not even close for me. Not Puppet. Gimmick Puppet was also mentioned here. There were a couple people who said Gimmick Puppet. I assumed that it didn't quite make top 3 because Gimmick Puppet just wasn't as meta relevant. Of course, the Gimmick Puppet design is also beyond anything that I would ever do in my card game. It wasn't as bad in practice because how often did you play against Gimmick Puppet in paper? That's why you didn't really feel the impact of that design. But you felt the design of Yubel and Tenpai. We also had most annoying card design in 2024, which honestly, I could have probably predicted this, but like the answers between those two questions are very similar, even though my personal answer is different. 7.89% thought the Molcharmis were the most annoying cards to play against in 2024. Fair enough. 14.43% said Yubel. 26.9% said Tenpai, and this is where I also said Tenpai. I don't know, in my head it just made sense. Worst does not necessarily equal most annoying. I thought the worst design was Phantom of Yubel, but the most annoying was definitely Sangan Summoning. And then I also asked you guys, what was your favorite booster in 2024, just to get like a little bit of an opinion on which kind of sets people liked and which kind of sets people didn't like, right? At the end of the year, fresh on everyone's mind, 14.64% said, yeah, Crossover Breakers, best set of the year. 19.94% said Quarter Century Bonanza. I thought this was going to be first. I thought people really liked Bonanza. But I guess when we're talking game design, I think it's fair. Like Bonanza did not introduce any new cards, right? Like it didn't change the game in that way. It still had great positive effects on the game and its accessibility. So that's why I think it was still a fair answer. And that's why I also included it. First place was won by The Infinite Forbidden, surprisingly enough. 21.39%. I don't know exactly what it was. I guess it makes sense. Fiendsmith and Molcharmi Purulia, a lot of people said positive things about those two things beforehand. My personal choice was Crossover Breakers. Maybe it's recency bias, but when I thought about this question, I did exclude Bonanza for myself because I did want to pick a set that introduced new cards to the game. I'm just thinking back at all the major events I played, and I'm just thinking like, hey, after Crossover Breakers came out, I enjoyed the format a lot more. So I picked Crossover Breakers just from like my playing experience. Also, I do think that it was worth mentioning that they did change the set structure for the collector's rare side sets. I thought opening Crossover Breakers felt a little bit better than previous collector's rare sets. On the flip side, least favorite booster set of 2024 in the TCG, Rarity Collection 2 made it on here, 11.84%, which surprised me. It's definitely worse than 1 in 3, but I still think it was pretty good. But hey, in second place, we have Phantom Nightmare, 14.85%, and 23.57% said Legacy of Destruction. I picked Phantom Nightmare because I looked at it from the game balancing aspect, and you know, Phantom Nightmare, look, what did it bring us? Basically the full base of the Yubel support except for Phantom of Yubel, so I wasn't a huge fan of that. I don't know exactly why people hate Legacy of Destruction so much. What was in Legacy of Destruction that was like bad for the game? Throne was Legacy of Destruction. Oh, that's why. Okay. My brain just went, hey, Yubel on the cover of Phantom Nightmare. Maybe I meant Legacy of Destruction then. Maybe I'm the one who's mixing it up. So Legacy of Destruction had Nightmare Throne and Tenpai. Oh yeah, I messed up. It's definitely Legacy of Destruction for me then. Sorry, Phantom Nightmare. I take it back. Best legacy support in the trading card game in 2024. 12.05% said Melodious. 12.77 said Ritual Beast. Obviously, Yubel wins this category. Do we have to talk about it? The best legacy support, like best in terms of most powerful, definitely Yubel. The dream legacy support for any archetype. Just make it broken for the entire year. Most disappointing legacy support. 6.02% said Lightsworn. 6.85% said Gen X. And 7.17% said Gimmick Puppet. You will note that these numbers are relatively low. That's because there was a lot of different answers for this one. 6 Samurais were mentioned. Magispector was mentioned. There was a lot of legacy support in 2024 that didn't end up being very relevant. For this category, I picked Lightsworn. It's actually weird because when I played with the new Lightsworn cards, they were super fun. So I'm not disappointed in them in that regard. I was disappointed in like, hey, these cards are really fun, but I still can't really play them because they're not good enough. And then the only way they're being played, well, there's an FTK with it. That's not what I wanted from Lightsworn support. Turns out they were just cool and not that playable, unfortunately, for now. We have the best Banlist decision in the TCG. So which singular change did you think was the best one made in 2024? In third place, 13.71% said banning original sinful spoils. In second place, 14.33% said the banning of Fiendsmith's Lacrima. In first place, 15.99% Appalooza. Now, this was also mentioned a lot of the times alongside Baron and Savage. Baron, I think, on its own was fourth place under original. A lot of people also just said generic Omni negates extra deck stuff. Before I reveal my choice, I think 2024, looking back, I was not so happy with some of the card design choices in Snake Eye and Yubel. With Banlist choices, I was overall pretty happy. I was a fan of hitting the extra deck Omni negates. I was also a fan of hitting some of the floodgates. My personal favorite choice of this year was the banning of Fiendsmith Lacrima. It was not only something that I thought was a card that was terribly designed, but it was also super fast. And I just really liked that whole thing that happened where Fiendsmith as an engine came out. They gave us Aerial Eater and Necroquip Princess as a replacement for Lacrima so that they could ban it faster. Because you have to realize, like, Fiendsmith Lacrima is one of the fastest bans in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. It's even the fastest ban in history. And I think that is why I liked it so much. I think it's because typically whenever something is in the game that's a problem, it takes too long for them to fix it. With Fiendsmith Lacrima, I think was the first time that they did it in an appropriate time. Here come the worst banlist decisions in 2024. 9.87%. Third place is a very funny answer. Dimension Shifter. And you're gonna say like, hey, but nothing happened with Dimension Shift. Exactly. When it came to the worst banlist decision, instead of saying like that they banned this card or that they brought back that card, 10% of people said that they didn't touch Shifter. Dimensional Barrier was also mentioned. It's not in top 3. I just thought that was hilarious. And honestly, I do not disagree with it. 17.76% said banning original Sinful Spoils. I will say most people that said original Sinful Spoils, they said original Sinful Spoils instead of Flamberge. So I think people didn't have a problem with hitting Snake Eyes. I think people had a problem with hitting original instead of Flamberge. They thought like, hey, keeping original for like Rescue Ace or something would have been cool. And honestly, I can see that. First place, 22.74%, the worst banlist decision in 2024, bringing back Arc Nemesis Protoss. As much as I wanted to also agree with Shifter, something in me just doesn't really understand why a card that so clearly deserves to be banned moves in that direction of the ban list. I just don't understand it. Even though it doesn't see as much play, whenever it's summoned, it's just miserable. I think Master has proven that even Ritual Beast can be played without Protoss. A lot of people do play it without Protoss. Funnily enough, I don't even have as much of a problem with Colossus, but Protoss, nah. And that's it. For the TCG, we're moving on to the Master Duel section now, where we had 755 respondents in the survey. Let's take a quick break to give away some graded cards to you guys. Cloud Card Grading has been a sponsor of the channel for a while now, and they've been making a Joshua Schmidt signature collection consisting of 20 cards that are very dear and close to my heart that you guys even got the chance to vote for earlier in the year. And we're giving away one set of 20 of these individual cards in today's video. Thank you to Cloud Card Grading for supporting the channel and for making this possible. And if you do ever feel like grading a card that is very close and dear to your heart and you want to have a bunch of different customization options when grading it, like having different colored cases and labels and all that kind of stuff, check out their link in the description down below. Let me show you some of these cards that you can win today and how you do it. The 20 cards in the collection are pictured here. Obviously, you've got all the fan favorites, all the runics, some paleo cards, some sprites, Naturia Sunflower, Tearlament Kid Carlos, of course. Oh my god, yes, Sky Striker is Ray, Engage, Colossal Fighter, my favorite card, Toad, Snipe Hunter, because of Team Snipe Hunter, of course, Ronin Toad, all kinds of good stuff. In total, there is 5 of each of these. They have my signature in the back of the label, which is pretty cool. And in general, they just look phenomenal. 2 have been given away on Twitch, 1 on YouTube right now, 1 is going to be given away on my Twitter, and 1 over on Cloud Card Grading's Instagram. So you might want to head over there if you don't want to miss that. The only thing you have to do in this video to win one of these 20, potentially win one of these 20, comment this emoji down in the comment section down below, just so I know who wants the card and who doesn't. Like, I don't want to give away a card to someone who wasn't expecting it or didn't even want it. So if you are interested, make sure that your comment includes this emoji. I'll also leave it in the comment section so you can copy paste it if you want to. 20 people will win one. Good luck, and let's continue with the award show. The most powerful deck in 2024 in Master Duel. Not as clear of a winner. I think that's worth pointing out. We had 85% saying Snake Eye in the TCG. In this case, we only have 47% for the first place. 15.89% said Fire King, specifically Fire King. I was this close to putting Fire King in the most overrated in TCG because Fire King never really took off. In Master Duel, it was a lot better. So that's fair enough. In second place, we have Tenpai. Obviously, you can see the difference between Tenpai in TCG and Master Duel. Best of 1 does wonders for Tenpai. 35% thought it was the best deck in Master Duel in 2024. 47% still said Snake Eyes. And that is without Fire King, just Snake Eyes. So 47% thought Snake Eyes was overall the most powerful deck in Master Duel. I think that's fair enough. I did agree on it. I think if you look at like the length of Snake Eyes dominance, I think it's hard to argue with 2024 being the Snake Eye year. Bell, interestingly enough, was 4th place, I think, in this category. And I think that's also fair for Master Duel, because I think you guys underestimate like how much Varudras and how much the Fiendsmith engine contributes to Yubel. Yubel in Master Duel was never as dominant as it would have been if it came out with the Fiendsmith cards, like it basically did in the TCG, right? The Fiendsmith cards just give that deck so much more power. And also, Max C is a big problem for it. For me personally, it would have been Snake Eye, Tenpai, Yubel. I would not have made a distinction between Snake Eye and Fire King, personally. Most overrated deck in Master Duel in 2024. 6.49% said Voiceless or Tearlament. They got the exact same number of votes. This is also where we needed the Kid Carlos image, by the way. Second place, Yubel. 12.05%, which I think is fair enough. 15% said Tenpai is overrated in Master Duel, which I think that's... I picked Yubel because I'm like, okay, you know what? Fair enough. The deck actually ended up being not even close to its power level in the TCG. People thought it was going to be better than that, and I don't actually think it's that good. It's still good, but it's not that good. Tenpai being... Look, I'm just presenting. Don't shoot the messenger, all right? I thought Tenpai was crazy in Master. Most underrated deck in Master Duel in 2024, we have 7.81% answering Labyrinth, and I think that's a fair point. 8.34% said Centurion, and 12.72% said Voiceless Voice, and I think that's a fair point. Once again, this is always when you look at it through the lens of a TCG player. You're like, okay, Voiceless Voice came out in a TCG, was arguably not as good as people thought it was going to be. So like naturally when it comes to Master Duel, people are like, oh, this deck didn't do as much in the TCG, so I'm also expecting it to not be as good in Master Duel. Turns out Voiceless Voice actually was a little bit better than that. I picked Centurion just because I love Centurion, and I thought there was a period in Master Duel like before Tenpai's release where that deck was actually pretty good. Like I was doing most of my climbing with it and I liked it a lot. I'm not saying it was the best deck, but it was definitely better than people gave it credit for, because everyone was like, oh, they don't have Primera Primus yet, I'm not gonna touch it. I thought it was pretty good. I also was surprised that people didn't mention Ritual Beast more here, because Ritual Beast definitely was my top 3 underrated. Like it was Centurion, then Ritual Beast, and then Voiceless Voice for me personally. Most fun deck in Master Duel 2024. 8.34%. Third place, White Forest. In second place, we have Tearlament. This one was not a new deck. It got so many votes. I included it because I think it's also funny. It's just crazy to see how long this deck, like the staying power, the lengths to what people go to just play this deck. And then in first place, Centurion, 11.39%, which was also my personal choice. I think other decks worth mentioning. I had a lot of fun with Chimera. I think Labyrinth is fun always. The reason why I personally didn't pick White Forest for this one is because whenever I play White Forest, Runic, and Master Duel, I'm frustrated by the Runic hits on the ban list. That like annoys me. And it's also a max C issue. The reason why I like Centurion in Master Duel is because getting max heat with it is not as frustrating. Paleo is not on here because Paleo was not a new deck. I personally interpreted these questions in terms of like new decks, but Paleo was obviously up there. Most annoying deck in Master Duel 2024. Anyone trying to guess first place? Yubel is third. Stun is second. We have a little bit of a gap going from 13% to 46.75. Tenpai. After the recent Duelist Cup, I just had no choice but to put Tenpai as first as well. That was something. Most overrated card in Master Duel 2024. Now, with these two categories, we have a large problem. I wanted this to be new cards, but most people just said like, oh, Ghost Ogre or Max C. I'm like, okay, well, anyways. 4.9% said Masterpiece. This one I accepted because it was technically new in Master Duel because it came back. 12.05% said Typhon, which I think is very funny. And 15% first place, most overrated card, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. I was very close to picking Typhon as well because I just think it's hilarious. The whole meme of, hey, Typhon win rate is terrible because whenever you summon Typhon, you lose. I didn't do that because I ultimately still think Typhon is a pretty good card. So I picked Masterpiece because I was so disappointed when I played Masterpiece. Most underrated card in Master Duel 2024. This is where the numbers are super low because most people just said different hand traps. They're like, hey, my Ghost Ogre was super underrated. DD Crow was super underrated. Ghost Bell was super underrated. Evenly matched. Droplet, like so many different cards mentioned at like 1 or 2% that didn't even come out in 2024. Third place here out of the new cards was the Black Goat Laughs. Silhouette Rabbit was in second place. And in first place, we had Typhon. I personally think all three of these cards are slightly underrated. Typhon is probably underrated because of that meme, right? Everyone thinks Typhon is bad because of that. I don't think that's true. I personally picked the Black Goat Laughs. Something like Triple Tactics Thrust in your main deck with one copy of Black Goat Laughs is very underrated. It's something that in best of one should probably be done a lot more. Best card design in Master Duel 2024. Now, once again, we have a lot of people mentioning archetypes. 5.96% said White Forest. 6.49% just said Typhon. 11.13% said SP Little Knight. SP is crazy broken. Yeah. But the question is not most broken. The question is, what is the best card design? And people said SP. Broken does not equal bad card design. I chose Centurion. Some of the things that were the most fun to me in the TCG, we simply don't have in Master Duel. I really enjoyed Fiendsmith. I enjoy Ryziel format. So I'm thinking like, what did we have in Master Duel? Well, we had Snake Eyes. I don't like that. We had Tenpai. I didn't like that. We have Yubel. I don't like that much either. So the period where Centurion came out, it's the deck I enjoyed the most in Master Duel, and it's not even close probably. And that's why I chose that. Worst card design in Master Duel 2024. We have this time Gimmick Puppet making it into the top 3. And I think it's very fair to say that in a best of one scenario, especially during Tenpai format, Gimmick Puppet was quite something. In second place, we have Phantom of Yubel once again. And then in first place, not even close, another award for the Tenpais. Tenpai is winning hella awards today, guys. The most decorated deck in this whole award ceremony. It's just kind of unfortunate that it's somehow all the negative ones. I don't know. Weird. I still picked Phantom of Yubel because that card. Most annoying card design in Master Duel 2024. Hey, we got another award. Gimmick Puppet. Yubel. This is the same question, basically. I just picked Sangan Summoning for this one. I could have put these two together. Best legacy support in Master Duel 2024. We have Fire King. And I think this one's very interesting because this kind of flopped in the TCG, but it was really good in Master Duel. Mainly because we got Volcanics in a timely manner. And then we have Ritual Beast in second and Yubel in first. Once again, I think it is hard to debate that Yubel has received the best wave of legacy support in 2020. Most disappointing legacy support in Master Duel 2024. Third place, 4.1%, Infernoid. Second place, 5.17%, Flame Swordsman. And in first place, with 6.49%, the Gimmick Puppet. Disappointment does not necessarily mean disappointed in its power level, because arguably Gimmick Puppet was more playable than Infernoid or Flame Swordsman. I think what people mean by this is, hey, we don't like what Gimmick Puppet has become, what kind of deck this is now, right? It's just an FTK, and I can definitely see like why people would be disappointed in that. I picked Lightsworn again. I thought these cards were super fun, but then they ended up just being like an FTK deck. That was disappointing to me. As you can see here, the numbers are very low and the differences between each individual one is also very small. There were a lot of archetypes mentioned at like 2 to 3%. I think Madolche was in 4th. The best Banlist decision in Master Duel 2024. Bringing back Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, 7.15%. The Dragoon stands are very powerful. 7.95% said hitting Floodgates. First place, Dimension Shifter to 1, which I did not agree with. I was very close to just putting Shifter, but then I remembered my burning hatred for Gamma and how it went to 1 recently. So I put Gamma to 1 as my favorite decision. I think this is the last question of the entire thing. We have the worst banlist decision in Master Duel 2024. In 3rd place with 5.3%, banning Pot of Prosperity. A lot of people didn't like that one. I don't personally have a problem with it being the worst decision. I don't think it's that bad, but okay, sure. Actually, no, I agree because I have a Royal Rare Pot of Prosperity, exactly 1 copy. So yes, it should be limited, and you guys are exactly right. In 2nd place, and this is probably just Jesse Cotton bot accounts, but 9.8% said banning Pearl Rhino. Now I want you guys to guess what people thought was the worst banlist decision in all of 2024. It is not even close. 13.51% said the worst banlist decision in Master Duel 2024 was not hitting Max D. Bro, it's not even something that happened. Weird, huh? Is it wrong though? No, it's not wrong. I definitely agree with that sentiment. I picked Snow to 1 because I just looked at all the changes they made and I'm like, that just didn't make sense. That card should be banned and you're realizing it's a problem, but you're putting it to 1. That was the 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG and Master Duel Card and Game Design Awards. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you all the people that responded to the survey. Once again, I'm very happy to reach over 1,300 people with it. I think it was a very interesting look at what the people think. Of course, once again, this is not everyone's opinion because if I put out a survey, of course, I will reach mostly my communities with it. I still think it's a pretty sizable chunk. If anyone who has anything to say in the TCG or Master Duel looks at this, they can get an idea of what kind of designs and what kind of interactions people like in a Yu-Gi-Oh card and what kind of things people don't like in Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I mean, I'm basically doing free market research right now for the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game in Master Duel, right? Like, look at this. I reached over 1,300 people and maybe you can take some ideas away from this. If you've been watching this on YouTube, definitely make sure to let me know your choices and what you agree and disagree with in the comments down below. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. Hope you guys have a wonderful start to 2025. Thank you for watching all the way through 2024.